Martina Bett, political correspondent at The Sun. Hello, great to have you with us again. Let's dive straight in. The Times we're starting with, and this reform, this Labour are billing it as this historical revamp of social care, but we won't see any of the kind of recommendations in action until at least 2028.
That's right. So Labour have said they're going to do a overhaul of social care. There's plans for a national care service. But first of all, they're going to have an independent commission that they hope will build political consensus amongst the parties. But they're getting some criticism because it's not going to report until 2028. And there will be an interim report in 2026, but the full report won't be until 2028. And of course, people across the healthcare sector are saying, actually, this is too long to wait. You know, we've had 30 years of governments trying to do something about social care and it being scrapped. We've had political arguments over it. In the last election, we had parties virtually ignoring the issue because it's so very expensive and contentious. And we have an ageing population and we have a crisis in the NHS. So really what we need is consensus on social care now and a government brave enough to do something about it before it gets worse.
It's an urgent need, isn't there, to do something about it, Martina?
Absolutely, and social care is often referred to as the problem no one wants to fix, and I think this announcement kind of reinforces that sentiment. And I think it's always quite striking to look at our European neighbours and how the UK strikes up against them, because, you know, across Europe, social care is really treated as the core part of welfare, and it's really not in the UK. If you look at investment as well, I think European countries spend an average of 2.5% of GDP. The UK spends closer to 1.5%. So it's really starking, and you need to ask yourself, you know, this delay probably risk widening that gap further.
Yeah, charities are sort of saying, how many more reports do we need before, like you were saying, action is taken. We'll park that for a moment. Let's go over to the Financial Times, Martina. Inspired growth, they say, means tax rises are almost inevitable.
Yeah, it's a very interesting article because we need to remember that all throughout the election campaign, and I'm old enough to remember it, Keir Starmer wasn't answering any questions in terms of how he was going to prevent tax rises, how he's going to prevent cuts to public services. And his answer to that was always, because we're going to achieve growth. We're going to be the fastest growing economy. And of course, this article doesn't really say that. He says that growth will return to the UK, but not enough to spare the Labour government from further tax rises. And we have heard from Chancellor Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer himself saying that the next budgets will not see the same level of tax rises. It's a different reality. Economists polled by the FT say that they're going to have to increase taxes further.
And assuming that they will be able to do another budget, Zoe.
Well, yes. I mean, I think, I don't see why not. But I think what is really key about this is that, you know, there are so many things outside of the government's control that can impact economic growth. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about a lot in a couple of weeks is Trump taking the presidency, his, proposed tariffs, his proposed protectionism, what impact that's going to have on the global economy. And as much preparation and as much, tax rises and spending reviews as you do, you can't always account for those global shocks. And, it's not just Trump, it's various conflicts across the globe as well, are definitely going to be dampening Keir Starmer's hopes.
I completely agree with you. What I would say was quite interesting is, because you, as you said, there's going to be lots of variables, so lots of factors that could derail the Labour government's plan. And Rachel Reeves, a couple of months ago, saying this is the last time we're going to see tax rises like this, not taking into consideration all those factors, was a bit premature.
Okay. This is another really interesting story. It's in the Eye. And it's over 60s with student loans unlikely to repay. Zoe, so this is older people heading back to university, taking out loans, essentially.
That's correct. So this is some data analysis done by the Eye paper. And they say since 2019, about 4,500 over 60s have taken out loans to cover the cost of higher education courses. But of course, this is somewhat of a problem because whereas young people pay 9% of their income when they're earning over 25,000, this particular repayment scheme doesn't take into account pension income, and of course people's personal income dip when they hit retirement. So what it means is that a lot of these over 60s will never repay their loans and might not start repaying at all. And it's just pointed out by, so it's Liz Emerson, the co-founder of the Intergenerational Foundation, that basically there's another kind of imbalance here, whereas, you know, this is a generation that did have access to free higher education, whereas for younger generations, they're paying what are quite, you know, substantial repayments. They're also facing higher costs of education, higher costs of childcare, and of course higher costs of housing. So it's yet another kind of intergenerational imbalance that seems to exist here in the UK.
Yeah. I have to say, you speak to so many students, don't you, paying off the tax on top of that student loan and only just finishing it. I think I finished it about 15 years ago, which says something, doesn't it, for how much you need to get you through higher education.
As well.
Yes. Let's go on now to, what are we moving on? The Times. And this is their front page article. It's sort of linked, I suppose, for those that do go to university. Generation Z, dreaming of an employer for life.
Yeah, it's a very interesting article because I never really thought about it. But according to this article, this tech-savvy generation, which is Gen Z, from the late 90s to the early 2010s, basically they are reviving the old dream of wanting an employer for life. And I think it's interesting to think about it because this generation is the same generation that was locked down during COVID, and they probably want and aspire towards that sense of security that millennials like us probably didn't have. And we millennials are known as the job-hopping generation. And so this is in stark contrast to that. It does present quite interesting questions in terms of the job market and policymakers as well. Can they meet them halfway? Because we live in a very volatile world, and you know, can they meet halfway of what the Gen Z dream is?
I'm just checking on this. Millennials aged 28 to 43. So I'm in that just. At 42. I can't believe that. OK, let's move on then. Zoe, talk us through the cold snap.
Yes.
That we're seeing over the next few days, because the Christmas period has been double digits, really mild in comparison to what we will see over the next few days. And there's real concerns, aren't there, for elderly people and that they're at increased risk during this time.
Absolutely. So, of course, we're in that period of the year where the NHS is particularly overloaded. We had quite a lot of flu before Christmas. Now, you're right, we have this cold weather snap. We also have energy bills going up. You know, they are 50% higher than pre-COVID levels. And of course, this row over the winter fuel payments as well. You combine all this with this particular period of heavy snow and low temperatures, and what you have is not only a very difficult health situation for the country, but also a political situation where there are going to be questions about, is there enough support for vulnerable groups? Is there enough support for the elderly? And is there enough support for the health service when you have cold weather that impacts people's health?
OK. We're going to end now on the Daily Telegraph, Martina. Their front page, well, a picture of Meghan Markle back on social media and a cooking show.
Yeah, she's got this new lifestyle show. I would say it's quite on brand. It's kind of what I expected her to do next. And it's quite interesting that the Meghan and Harry have been trying to sort of find the place after leaving the royal family. They've tried to do a podcast. They've tried to do Meghan had a 40-40 lifestyle of helping people that were reaching 40, and now this lifestyle show.
So we shall see how popular that is. Martina, Zoe, thank you so much for your company. We will be back after a very short break with all of your top stories.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered.